This is Outside the Box. Standing by is Jay Silverman, and he is a director, producer, photographer for over 30 years, specializing in award-winning television, digital, and print campaigns. I had him on my other show, and I'm so happy to have him on Outside the Box. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, we had talked about this because you have such an interesting background starting in commercials, correct?
Correct.
How did you first get into doing that professionally?
You know, it's interesting. It actually goes back further than that, because when I was in high school, I wasn't the best communicator, and I just loved this idea of being able to tell a story in a photograph. And I was lucky enough when I was in high school to have a teacher who became a mentor that would bring in famous Life magazine photographers and National Geographic photographers, and they would explain, you know, how it's important where you stand, it's important what you've composed, but you know, every picture has to tell a story. And to me, that was like, you know, an epiphany. And that's why I was lucky enough at a young age to go, I want to do that.
Yeah.
So I became a photographer first, then it evolved into shooting commercials, then it evolved into doing television shows, then it evolved into doing movies.
You've had some challenges along the way. It's never been, you know, this easy ride, right?
Well, I mean, I think I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you the advice I constantly reflect on is a fortune cookie I got when I was probably in my 20s, and it said, life is constant construction, which means, you know, it's if you ever go to New York City or drive around in a taxi in New York City, you'll see scaffolding everywhere. So it's a constant part of the process. And I don't think, and this is therapeutic, I don't think one can really truly appreciate the good things in life if they haven't experienced the alternative to good things.
It's true.
Whether it's a broken heart in relationships, or whether it's you know, challenges of raising children, or it's going through a horrible divorce, they all make you better people if you choose to.
Yes.
And that's what I choose.
I might have shared this with you. I have this mantra: sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that ever happened.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, we learn a lot through rejection and loss and, you know, the challenges. And, you know, being that this show was started in the pandemic in response to the millions of people out of work. And then I decided, let me also focus on students and include them, because think about all the milestones they missed out on. I mean, we're in a mental health pandemic. What?
You know, it's really, really incredibly intuitive of you to have this opportunity where you interview people and discuss both the good and the bad and the ugly. I have 3 daughters. 2 of them are going through some challenging times. One of them is really going through some challenging times. She's going to college, but you know, it's all done virtually.
Yeah.
And the other day she called me, and I was like, I didn't even recognize her voice, because she sounded inspired. And I said, what's going on? She goes, I just did my first physical class. And
finally.
I actually got to hug my teacher. That's what she said. So now think about that, just conceptually, okay? So here's a 23-year-old kid that has not had even a remote college experience.
Yeah.
And it's no different than you talking to people on this medium that we're on now.
Right.
You know, you expressed before the show that you've done some interviews in person, and it takes it to a whole new level, you know.
Right.
And
that's right.
I would 100% agree.
Yeah.
But when you're in a situation that doesn't enable that, you know, this is a pretty good middle point here.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting. My other daughter's 19 and she's remote, and I can't wait for the day that she's in person.
I mean, it's, you know, I've told this story multiple times because my older daughter, who's 26, did have that experience. She's a chef, And, when I look at her and I see all the things she does, with her friends and her associates and stuff like this that just simply don't exist for her sisters.
Yeah.
Because they did not meet kids at college. They did not build a social connectivity.
That's
and
right.
It's heartbreaking. I mean, my best friend and I met after college, and that was over 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And he's my best friend, and you keep these relationships throughout your life.
Yes. I can agree. Some of the most significant people in my life have been people I met in college.
Right.
And so you want to see your kids have those experiences, and students know they are missing these moments.
Right.
So because of the industry you're in, I'm going to direct this to that industry,
Sure.
But what advice would you give someone that had big plans to go work, in film, on commercials, and they are so disappointed? What would you say to them about maybe building a different type of career?
I have a note on my wall in my office here written from RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York. And it says, after I sent them my portfolio at 17 years old, it says, we recommend you choose another occupation. and it's interesting because I didn't solicit them to tell me what I should do with my career.
Yes.
I tried to get into that college. So rather than just simply declining my admission,
yes,
they chose to give me some wisdom. And ironically, that had the reverse effect on me. It made me determined to prove that they were wrong. Okay.
Yes.
And years and years and years, I think 20, 30 years later, I sent the guy a letter, and he's an old guy now.
Yeah.
And I said, thanks for your motivation. And that's what I would tell someone that is, feels disenfranchised, feels underappreciated, feels frustrated by whether it be the pandemic or it just being the aftermath, which we're in transition in LA, fortunately, where you can actually get back to normality. I went to a movie last night. And
a movie?
And they actually asked me to show them my vaccine card, which is the first time that's ever happened to me. Yeah. And I was delighted.
Sure.
We went in and we had a good time. Yeah. It was an industry screening, but that's what they're doing now,
Right. Yeah.
And I just got to say, it's where there's a will, there's a way. You're frustrated, you're feeling sad, you're feeling unfulfilled. Maybe, do the most rudimental thing, and that is take your little iPhone, find yourself in lock yourself in the bathroom of your apartment, and make a decision to shoot 100 pictures that are abstract in that bathroom.
I like that.
And I'm just using this as a simplistic illustration. And you'll be mesmerized by the fact that you are more creative than you think. Whether it's a crack on the floor, or it's a spider web in the left corner you didn't know existed, or it's what happened to me yesterday. I saw a spider on the floor in our living room, and my fiance went over to it and she hit it, not to kill it, but to put it in a box so she could take it outside. Okay. And by hitting it, 1,000 spiders came out of its nest. I guess it was cured. And it scared the shit out of me and out of her. But I have to tell you, almost all of them went into the box because they followed the mom.
Okay.
And we took it outside. It was an interesting little moment.
Yes.
So I filmed it,
I was going to say, your next movie.
Exactly. And I am afraid of spiders, so just for the record.
Well, spider bites are not pretty. Let me just say that.
No.
I'm going to add two things to what you just said. Number one, I know that students aren't necessarily doing well being remote academically. They're not really academically excelling. I know quite a few that are having that problem. And my feeling is that this time will predict nothing. Those SATs or those scores or that test you failed will not predict your future. It doesn't mean anything, because to me, the most important thing is mental health. That's the thing you always have to be in check with. That will pave the way for your future, right? And that you do have to kind of pivot and kind of find new things to focus on. Like I love the bathroom idea. I mean, in graduate school, my teacher said, I want you, it was a qualitative research class, get on an elevator, and you know how everybody faces the buttons, turn around and face everybody. How awkward, right? And make notes, mental notes of how people feel so uncomfortable by you staring at them, right?
Well, can I just say this? When I was a kid, I grew up in San Fernando Valley.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget my mom and driving in the car, no joke. And we would go by this guy on Sherman Way in San Fernando Valley. And he was a cowboy. And he always wore shorts, cowboy boots, and a big cowboy hat. And he waved all the time at everybody. And my mom would honk her horn and wave back. And I know you're going to think I'm an idiot, but I've always done that. You know, it grew on me.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I drive to work, I honk at the workers. I say hi, you know.
That's nice.
And when I go to a restaurant, I always ask what the waiter's name is. And I always engage in compliments, not because they don't deserve it, but because they never get them. You see what I mean? And I think it's super intuitive to recognize that you can control the world around you by being intuitive enough to recognize the massive deficiency that's going on. My daughter works. My youngest daughter worked at a Bed Bath and Beyond, and she quit on Saturday. And I was 100% on top of her decision. She's being abused every day
What?
by
Really?
just really disconcerting, disrespectful, incredibly hostile customers all day long. You know,
Customers.
And I initially would toss it off as being, you know, you're being overly sensitive. You're starting to go to work with the wrong attitude. And then my brother told me he went there the other day and had 3 incidents in one day because he had to go back twice. And all 3 incidences were
Awful.
rude, you know, by customers coming in and throwing fits. And now I kind of cognizantly can see what my daughter was dealing with, because these are the extreme examples of the pandemic playing out in public.
That's
One guy
so
was stealing
awful.
merchandise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have lost our way. I think humanity has lost its way. And you were just talking about connecting with people. And I think that's incredibly kind, by the way, because we've lost our sense of connection. I think we're living in a time where there's a lot of ego, there's a lot of selfishness, and we're not connected and compassionate and empathetic. I mean, that's why I told you I launched that Better Humans initiative. It's called the CARE Initiative, and it talks about connection and mental health and being resilient, because we're not paying attention of what really matters right now.
I hate to say it, but you have social media to blame for that, because unfortunately, if you wake up in the morning like I do and spend 20 minutes on a bicycle while I'm looking at TikTok, what I see, and I'm not saying this in any other way, but it's mesmerizing to see how easy it is to be influenced by the hate.
Right.
So if you just pass by it and get rid of it, it disappears,
Mm-hmm.
because they've got algorithms to do that.
Sure.
But I'm not lying to you when I say to you that it is incredibly easy to have a very few amount of people influence a huge amount of people in a negative way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting. When my daughter I told the story to you on the other podcast, but when I worked with Ray Charles, we had a huge shoot in Los Angeles on the 12th of December on 9/11. You understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the outcome of it is that what ended up transpiring is the buildings fell that day. And I ended up I was in Washington, D.C., and I ended up getting on an airplane on an earlier flight, and my original flight ran into the Pentagon and crashed. So, you know, that's a life-changing moment, right?
Of course, yes.
and when I got back and I worked with Ray and we became friends and acquainted and found ourselves in a situation of such emotional turmoil, the whole crew, everybody, chose the high road, which is we got to go on with life.
Yes.
And we got to make the best of what we got here. The worst we can do is be a victim to the terrorists, that had planned to stop everything.
Yep. Yeah. You had shared some other moments with different people, from Jerry Lewis and Michael Jordan. Do you want to share one or two little moments that were kind of insightful for you?
Well, I mean, I think, to the point, this is an interesting story. To your audience that's young, they're not going to know who Dennis Miller is, but Dennis Miller was a very successful comedian. Now he's older. He's not as visible on television, as he previously was.
On SNL.
Yeah, he was on Saturday Night Live. But he kind of, I think he's in his mid-70s now, but he kind of woke up one morning and booked a big shoot at my studio. And everybody told me this guy is the most tragically difficult person to work with. And I thought to myself, this is why people hire me, because I have an uncanny ability to be able to get them to cooperate and allow me to do my job and get the job done. And I look at this kind of challenge as part of what I do for a living. It has less to do about filmmaking and more to do about how to wrangle a uncomfortable situation into something that is, positive. And I sat him down when he came to the studio in this very office. And I looked at him and I said, you seem like a really nice guy. I just want to get something on the table. I said, I hear you're the most difficult guy in the business. And you're going to make my life a living hell. And he looked at me and laughed, put his arms around me and said, ain't going to happen to you.
Good. So
that is part of what I consider to be the magic of being a filmmaker, is trying to pre-exist in an environment that's already convoluted with politics, convoluted with challenges, financial restraints, pressures. So what's the most important component? Human relations,
Yes.
Your ability to get along with who you're working with and get the job done,
Sure. So would you say it's important to be upfront with somebody in a polite way? Because it sounds like that's something you learned, or maybe you've always been like that.
I think it's learned behavior, because when I was a young guy, I worked for a very famous photographer when I was 17 years old, multiple, because I had this mentor that was able to say, hey, give this guy a call, I mean, I just met a guy at Noah's Bakery the other day. True story. This is last weekend. And he was such a sweet, kind kid. I go, what are you doing? I said, what do you want to be? He says, I want to be a sports entertainment manager. I said, how old are you? He goes, 16. And I said, tell you what, here's my business card. My cousin at the time, I didn't know this. He's now moved into a different direction, but he was the CFO of one of the biggest sports management companies in the world. Okay.
Amazing.
And I said, I'll connect you to him. So I sent an email to my cousin, and he said, I'll be happy to meet with this kid. That's how it happens. Okay.
That is so nice, Jay, though. I mean, that's so nice.
Yeah, but it reflects what I consider to be why I lucked out too. It's not necessarily luck, it's perseverance. It's one's desire to go, guess what? I'm going to go. This is a true story. I lived in the Palisades in Los Angeles. I made my first movie, Girl on the Edge. And while I'm developing the movie, we have a finished script that we're ready to go. And I realized that my neighbor across the street, Matt Damon, okay, who I didn't know, who I never met, had shot a movie about building a zoo. I don't know if you recall that movie.
I remember that movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, I scouted the same location that he scouted, that he used in that movie, Zoo. So
Yeah.
long story short, my wife at the time encouraged me to go across the street and ask if he has any milk. You know what I mean? It's a joke. So I did it. And I don't know how it happened, but next thing you know, I'm in his kitchen, and he is, because he's got 4 daughters.
Yeah.
I've got 3 daughters, and he basically said he'd like to read the script. So he gave me notes.
It's great.
So I give him a lot of credit.
Yes.
He complimented the script, but he said, I think you need to do X, Y, Z. Those don't happen unless you have tenacity.
Right.
And, or maybe perseverance.
Yes.
And believe me, right now, I'm going through that exact same emotion, trying to find a lead for my next movie. And I don't want to go through the traditional route, which is call a casting agent and have them make an offer to Henry Winkler, for example.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Because I'm looking for a 70+ comedian kind of actor. And so here I am now telling you on a TV show or on a podcast that, I'd love to sit down and have a cup of coffee with him, because I'm legitimate, I'm for real. But the last thing I want to do is go through a traditional route and have his agent go, how much money are you paying? And be so insulted that they never even give him the script.
So maybe you should go back to Matt Damon and ask him if he knows anybody.
Anyways, the good news here is at least for your audience, is that we're living in America. This is 2021.
Right.
There is an enormous set of opportunities if you have the desire to believe in yourself and believe that you're not asking for something unreasonable.
Yes.
I would just like to be an observer on your set. I would just like, Did I tell the story to you, if I did, stop me, I was doing a huge shoot. This has to be 15 years ago, with Ray Charles on one stage, Michael Jordan on another stage, and on the third stage, a moon landing set we built for a guy who walked on the moon, and I'm going to remember his name. Boy, oh boy, I'm looking.
Armstrong? Neil Armstrong? Oh, the other one. Yeah.
Yeah. So long of the short of it is that day I was walking through the parking lot at 5:30 in the morning, getting ready for a big shoot. So you understand, 3 days in a row, I had 3 big jobs.
Whoa. And
anyways, one thing leads to another, and a young guy comes to me and meets me at the gate. And he's, seemed like a nice enough kid. He says, what do you do here? And I go, we make, TV commercials.
Yeah.
He says, I would do anything to be involved in this. So I put my hand on his shoulder and I said, come with me. And there's 100 people, coming to work at this moment. And I said, I'll let you be a fly on the wall, be my shadow. But you got to do one thing, you just got to stay calm and positive, out of the way. So he said, absolutely, I'll do anything. So we finished the day. We shot with Ray Charles. We shot 3 big, huge projects. And at the end of the day, I saw him and I put my arm around him and said, so Jimmy, what'd you think?
Yeah.
And he looked at me, he goes, I was actually hoping that I could work the camera or something. So, thanks. And I said, well, so I'll see you tomorrow. And he goes, no, I got enough.
Wow.
And I was flabbergasted, and I still am flabbergasted.
Of course.
Because when you wake up in the morning, you give an opportunity like that, and then somebody chooses not to take advantage of it.
Exactly.
It's heartbreaking, because he had a what I would describe as being not only unrealistic expectations, but just ignorant, naive.
Well, not humble. I think you have to be humble in this situation. I feel like what I hear you saying, which is really important, is especially people have helped you and been your mentor, you want to give back.
Absolutely.
So you're doing that in different ways by giving different opportunities. I mean, helping the 16-year-old, that's tremendous. That was probably a life-changing thing you did.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, but
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, more people should do it, especially people that are doing well for themselves. I
Yes.
don't have, at my age, I don't have the insecurity of somebody waking up and hitting me over the head and going, "What are you doing? He's
Right.
going to take away jobs from you."
Exactly.
I don't think that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I really think this is an opportunity for people to feel they should connect more. So if you're a student, just try to network and connect with different people in different industries. And I'm more than happy to talk to the people if people want to email me. As I mentioned, I'm doing panels. I'm doing a mentoring event on Outside the Box, which I think is really important to match students with people like yourself in different industries so they can get a kind of a sanity check of, hey, we know things are really difficult right now, but here's what you could be doing.
Yeah, I think the most important is having taking the initiative.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about whoever's listening to this show.
Yeah.
We don't live in unfortunately Afghanistan, where women's rights are being stolen away, or people that had ambitions in learning a trade might never be able to learn that trade. We're living in America, where literally, if you want something bad enough, there are people like myself that are willing to, put their best foot forward and try to help,
Yeah. I told you I met Sonny Foxx, right? Years ago?
No, you didn't.
Okay. And you know who Sonny Foxx was, correct? Okay. So for those who don't know, he hosted Wonderama. He hosted another few other shows in New York. All I did was pick up the phone, Jay. I picked up the phone. We talked for over an hour, and I was asking about Wonderama, and I was wondering why no one has ever replicated this show for kids. I thought it was a great concept. I didn't watch it when he was host because I was much too young. But the point was, I picked up the phone. We became friends. We went to lunch. We would go to lunch every few months. And he was a wonderful friend and a mentor to me. Yeah.
I think it's extraordinary. I mean, there is, it's not just determination. It's actually creating a list for yourself that says, this is what I'm going to shoot for. I want to be a screenwriter. I want to be a person that delivers a message about history. I want to be a person that's apolitical. You start writing this stuff down and you start to realize, wow, I have something to offer.
Definitely. Yeah.
Before you know it, I think, the beginning of it is being able to trust yourself enough to take that first step.
Definitely. Let's just quickly dive into your latest film, Saving Paradise, which I really enjoyed. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What does it feel like having made this film and here, we are 2021, we're still in the pandemic. It's not in the rearview mirror yet. What's it been like for you?
Well, I think number one, I'm always the glass is half full. So I see it as being an opportunity that couldn't have been better. The movie was never, even though it did play at theaters for a week, it was never designed to play in theaters. It was designed to stream, just like 99% of the movies right now.
Sure.
The fact that it's finding an audience because of a positive message is extraordinary. I mean, I get every day I look on my Facebook and see people that have seen the movie that go, what everybody should watch this movie because we've forgotten who we are, as a nation, as a country. Yes. And it's, even though the movie's apolitical, it is about unity, and it is about taking what I consider to be, a universe that is filled with choices, and witnessing in our life right now people making the wrong choices. Right. I don't think there's more of a fulfillment that a filmmaker can get than creating a simple story about perseverance succeeding. Sure. Especially with a community and with a global effort to try to turn an incredibly negative situation. As you know, my movie's about a small pencil factory in middle America that essentially is on the chopping block, and the town saves it. Mm-hmm. And is it an old story? Hey, listen, this is important. Everything is a cliche. If you go to write a movie, and you have 2 screenplays you just told me you wrote. Right. Congratulations.
Thank you
for getting into the festivals. I can assure you, and this isn't meant to be critical, they've been told before, but have they been told from your point of view? Have they been told from my point of view? Because everything's a cliche. If you don't know that, you're blind. I mean, right. I always thought it was fascinating to see Michael Jackson do the moonwalk, and then see Fred Astaire do the moonwalk, and then see somebody from vaudeville do the moonwalk.
Yeah.
You think, I guarantee you people goes, oh, Michael stole that from Fred Astaire, and then Fred Astaire stole it from
vaudeville.
Everything's been done before, and so you want to tell it fresh, you want to tell it new, and you want to make it contemporary, and that's what I did.
Yeah. Well, it was great. It was great.
Thank you.
What else would you like people to know about you before we wrap up?
That's an interesting question. What do they should know about me? I've been in business for almost 40 years. I started as a photographer and then evolved into a storyteller, and then made movies, make TV shows. And, my entire DNA is really designed on trying to give back. And I'm not talking about just now. I've always been encouraged by a positive message. And to me, my leave behind is, and this is something that I'm constantly reminded of, because we're developing other movies now, in addition to the one I'm getting ready to make. And it always comes back to somebody hitting me over the head and going, Jay, what do you know about X? And it turns out very little. And why don't you do something And that to me is the beginning. It's like my youngest daughter, she is now wanting to be a writer, and what motivates her is her story. And Great. You have to start there, because the truth of it is that nobody is going to tell you to do it. You got to do what you know. And
what drives you? What drives you? What gets you out of bed?
It's like both of us have something in common here. What is it? You wouldn't be here, because believe me, you're not making a load of money doing what you're doing.
Right.
I wouldn't be here. We're motivated by helping others.
Yes. Yeah. I also refer to it as having purpose and meaning.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But it gives me a lot of fulfillment knowing that I could motivate somebody, or take somebody that was, in a box, and turn them into a circle,
Yeah, absolutely. Where can people find out more about you? What's your website?
My website is JaySilvermanProductions.com.
Okay. And your new movie, where can they see information?
My new movie is available on Amazon Prime. It's called Saving Paradise. And it's also available on iTunes or Redbox or what have you, Spectrum. There's 20 vehicles, but I think it's an inspirational movie I find it hard to believe somebody wouldn't find it inspirational, because it's really a true story, about evil versus not evil.
Exactly.
And isn't that the story we all deal with virtually every day here?
We sure do. We sure do. Yeah. Well, congratulations. I know it is receiving a lot of great praise.
Thank you.
You worked so hard. It's a great message. And I look forward to seeing what else comes down the road for you.
Well, I can't wait, because it'll be down the road in about a year.
Okay.
And I hope you remodel by then. Okay.
I will try. I have a lot of dusting and vacuuming to do too.
Well, thank you so much. It was wonderful to be on your show, and I hope that I inspired a few people.
Thank you, Jay. It was great talking to you.